My name is Nino Dapu, and I'm a Doctor of Philosophy and Business student. Today, I will be presenting a framework entitled Explaining the Entrepreneurial Startup Behavior, a conceptual framework of the motivation on antecedents of entrepreneurial startup behavior. I want to start off with the entrepreneurship and its contribution to society. As reported by GEM in 2019, or the Global Entrepreneurship Monitoring, entrepreneurial efforts will result to creation of new business which will eventually make jobs available, product innovations, maintaining the continuous improvement in the products and services. Another is that global entrepreneurial activity uh, in the East and South Asia region is one of the economies with the lowest total early stage and early entrepreneurial activity, again, as reported by GEM. And I'm theorizing entrepreneurship as an emerging career part in the Philippines because according to the most recent report of GEM, which is 2019, our country has the highest early stage entrepreneurial activity in Asia and Oceania. This paper will be significant to humanistic management and organizations because I can exploit the entrepreneurial intention as an antecedent of entrepreneurial behavior because again, individuals with intention is the only explored predictor of entrepreneurial outcomes, which was done by Bird, Asjen, Chuen Wong, Henley Lee et al. And Xu and Law, while entrepreneurial motivation on entrepreneurial intention and behavior was conducted by Alam and Reman 2019 and suggested that the pilot testing should have to be done in other countries. Similar with the motivational framework, bahala na is a Filipino values, meaning or referring to the determination and risk-taking to do certain things. While this is significant for practice in humanistic management and organization because first off, entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs can trace the Filipino values that can further push them to successfully set up their own business. Also, researchers can have new perspective on explaining how Western-centric entrepreneurship research be merged with our Filipino values, bahala na. Policymakers can provide research fund for mining data focused on peculiarity of Filipino values such as bahala na in achieving positive outcomes. Theoretical perspective will be merged in this study. First off, we start with the theory of planned behavior formulated by Asgen in 1980. He posited that the best way to predict human behavior is through intention, while there are a lot of literature actually stating that it doesn't necessarily mean that if you have an intention is that it can be converted to actual behavior. While we have the self-determination theory by Deci and Ryan in 1985, which explains that individuals' actual behavior is driven by motivation or determination. So in this regard, I'm the self-determination theory that I'm looking at can really strengthen the relationship between the intention and the behavior. Also, the self-determination theory is quite similar with the bahala na Filipino values because again, as defined a while ago, this is the bahala na Filipino value is has something to do with the determination or the motivation to do something. So to explain the principles and methods for theory development, first I want to start with the outcome variable. It is identified by choosing an outcome that you want to explain according to Jacquard and Jacobi, while the direct effect started the theory construction by specifying variables that are direct causes of the outcome variable, again as posited by Jacquard and Jacobi. While the mediating effects is the heuristics in the mediator means that the influence of x to y and the cause of a cause heuristics cost of a cost heuristics as defined by Jacquard and Jacobi, while the moderating effects is the or testing whether the influence of x on y will be stronger through the moderating variable. For my dependent variable, I'll be using entrepreneurial behavior. It was defined as the ultimate dependent variable in the model that influenced by entrepreneurial intention as mentioned by Asgen 1991. Entrepreneurial behavior was operationalized in this study as entrepreneurial startup behavior, and it is defined as the activity of setting up a business. It will be measured by asking the question, have you started a business since the initial data collection? And it can be answerable by yes or no only. While for the independent variables constructs, I'll be using subjective norm, attitude towards behavior, and perceived behavioral control. The this the subjective norm refers to the perceived social pressure from other individuals to perform or not to perform the behavior, while the attitude towards behavior refers to the person's favorable or unfavorable appraisal of the behavior. And perceived behavioral control is the person perceives himself as having complete control over deciding to perform the behavior or not. These constructs will be measured um, or the formulation of measures of attitude towards behavior, perceived behavioral control, and subjective norm will be based on Asgen's publication, this 2019, composed of 7-point Likert scales. Rating variables, I'll be using entrepreneurial intention to start up a business. So first off, Kruger 2009 defined entrepreneurial intention as the cognitive state temporally and causally prior to action. Psychology research also considered intention to be the best predictor of planned behavior. And Asgen 1987-1991 talks about intention to act is a type of medium in securing a better understanding of behavioral act itself. It will be measured as a single indicator item that focuses on the extent to which participant intends to establish a business. While the question is, are you planning to set up a business within foreseeable future will be answerable only by yes or no. For the motivational framework is used as a moderating variables. I considered the controlled motivation, autonomous motivation, and a motivation from the self-determination theory. Controlled motivation refers to extrinsic drive to engage in activity, while autonomous motivation refers to intrinsic drive or perceived recognition of the values associated with an outcome. A motivation is the other way around because it refers to lack or absence of motivation to perform the activity. The questionnaire will be a 7-point like a Likert scale that will be adopted from Desi and Ryan 2002, measuring the autonomous motivation, controlled motivation, and a motivation. It is because as your um, favorable appraisal of setting up business increases, then so your intention will increase as well. It is because as the social pressure in a perceived social pressure increase from other individuals to perform or to do this or to set up a business, then the intention is also increasing. It is because as the persons perceive himself as having complete control over setting up a business, then the entrepreneurial intention will increase as well. It is mainly because, again, as your intention to conduct business is answered yes, then most likely the probability of starting up a business is basically linear or getting a yes also of setting up the. It is because as the person perceives himself as having complete control over deciding to perform or to set up a business, then most likely he will be answering yes on the setting up business. It is because as the in extrinsic drive to engage in setting up a business increases, then the relationship of intention to start up a business converting into setting up an actual business is or will be stronger. It is because as the intrinsic drive or perceived recognition of the values associated with setting up a business increases, then the possibility of really setting up a business through the antecedent intention will be most likely stronger. This means that when there is an increasing lack or absence of motivation to perform the activity, the relationship between, although you have an intention, is that it is not necessarily that you will set up a business because again you have the lack or you have a lack or absence of motivation to do or to set up a business. The entrepreneurial intention mediates the relationship between attitude towards behavior, subjective norm, perceived behavioral control, and entrepreneurship behavior. This is the integrated theory that I have for the nine hypotheses that I formulated. The observable phenomena that I want to explain is the intention to set up a business. Because again, in the Philippines, since we are a developing country, it was found that in the Asia and Oceania, as reported by Global Entrepreneurship Monitoring, we are one of the highest country with total entrepreneurial activities. The events that yielded the phenomena is that the higher total entrepreneurial activity of the Philippines and the entrepreneurial setting up of business itself. The possibility that entrepreneurial intention, controlled motivation, and autonomous motivation, and a motivation can trigger the event or the setting up of business. The structural makeup of the entrepreneurial intention that enable it to trigger event is that it has a temporal stability of intention, accessibility of behavioral intention, and certainty of intention. The causal power or causal mechanism of this of entrepreneurial intention to set up a business is that it explains person's actual behavior. It improves perceptions about likely outcomes when setting up a business. It enhances perceptions about the expectations and behavioral norms of others and posits that entrepreneurs have control on setting up a business. However, uh, the liability of intention is that intention does not always convert to actual setting up of business. However, these conditions can trigger the event, the autonomous motivation, controlled motivation, and the motivation. Because again, the autonomous and controlled motivation, as discussed a while ago, refers to the extrinsic and intrinsic drive of a person to set up a business, while the motivation refers to the lack or absence of motivation to do or to set up a business. The critical realist model that I created, again, entrepreneurial intention X has a structured temporal stability of intention, accessibility of behavioral intention, and certainty of the intention, which has a causal power to explain actual behavior, improve perceptions about the likely outcomes when setting up a business, enhance perceptions about expectations and behavioral norms, posits that entrepreneurs have control on setting up a business, and useful when behavior is uncommon, and it can it can be triggered by events such as autonomous motivation and controlled motivation because it will definitely allow them, or it is on their mind that can really influence the intention or the intention to lead to setting up a business, while the motivation can explain why people who has intention will not be setting up a business.